Right people, the SE4 leaks keep ramping up as we get closer to release. We have a lot of big details about this exciting release, so let's delve right in. So today's report comes from ICE Universe, who randomly gave us a few tidbits about the iPhone SE4 and Weibo, which was surprising because this man is a Samsung knight, so why does he suddenly care about the iPhone? That's a little sus, but anyways, as always with a rumor, take everything with a grain of salt. Delving in, I'm gonna be honest, a lot of this might be a recap for those who've been closely following iPhone SE4 leaks, like me of course, because I have no life. They begin by mentioning the SE4 is going to feature Face ID and Type-C, which of course would be a big upgrade from current and previous models, which all featured a Touch ID home button and the lightning ports. However, this news should not be a surprise. We have heard a lot about the SE4 being a reskinned iPhone 14, so that explains Face ID, and with the EU breathing down Apple's neck, USB-C is a given on all their new products. Anyways, the quite obvious tidbits continue. The display, for example, is going to grow in size from 4.7 inches to 6.06 inches, and it's going to feature an OLED panel for the first time. Wow, who'd have figured? It's not like this phone's based on the iPhone 14, but thankfully we do get some more juicy and interesting tidbits. So number one, the new SE is expected to have the A18 chipset, just like the iPhone 16 series, and that's great because it will still be the latest chipset when this releases in early 2025. To be fair, Apple's always done this with the SE range. The SE1, for example, had the latest A9 at the time, the SE2 had the latest A13 at the time, the SE3 got the latest A15 at the time, and so yeah, it's pretty easy to work out the SE4 is going to get the A18 chipset, and it's because Apple produces a ton of these chipsets already for the higher-end iPhones, and so it makes more logistic sense to use this in the SE as well, and of course a big bonus for us will be the long software support. Now you're probably thinking, this must mean we're getting Apple Intelligence for sure, right? Right? Well, that's where things do get a little confusing. So ICE Universe mentions we could see, and I quote, 6 to 8 gigs of LPDDR5 memory, which does suggest you might get different amounts of RAM depending on the storage tier you get. This is quite common in the Android world, but is a first for the iPhone, though do remember the iPad Pro has done this for a while now, with base versions having 8 gigs of RAM and higher storage variants getting 16 gigs of RAM. But guys, I'll be honest, I don't see Apple doing this. They likely want as many devices supporting Apple Intelligence, and clearly 8 gigs of RAM is the minimum needed, and so I can see the SE4 getting 8 gigs as standard. At least with the iPad Pro, you could argue the repurposing M-series chipsets, which come with varying amounts of RAM, but the A18 is only going to be in the iPhone 16, and we know for sure that's getting 8 gigs of RAM, so they're just going to plop the same SoC in the iPhone SE. You know what you should plop though? A sub to the channel. Yeah, I'm sorry about the horrible segue, but I would appreciate it. It would bring you the latest about Apple, so please consider it. Join the Saranbyte gang now. Next, ICE Universe tells us, you won't believe this, the SE4 is going to feature an aluminium chassis. Oh my god! Okay, thankfully then mentioned something slightly more compelling, which is a single rear 48 megapixel camera, which we have heard from other leakers in the past. This is the feature I'm most looking forward to because it will bring the 24 megapixel mode and the 2x crop the 15 has down to the cheapest iPhone and will easily compel many to upgrade. Now, release date wise, ICE Universe believes iPhone SE4 is apparently going to launch between March and May 2025 with a price point of $499 to $549, and this all makes sense to be fair. Why? Well, for one, it's clear that this will be based on the iPhone 14. Many leakers have mentioned this, and usually when Apple releases a new SE, the model it's replacing is the oldest iPhone they sell. Right now, that's the iPhone 13, and so if it's based on the iPhone 14, we'll have to wait for the 16 series to launch, and then it'll come down in price to $599. Apple's also likely going to discontinue the Plus, and only the 14 will be at $599, which means they can easily swap out for the new SE in early 2025. We also got production news from the information. They claim production is going to begin in October, so it's clear this won't launch with the iPhone 16 series. But weirdly enough, the information does suggest Apple could be targeting a Jan release ahead of the Lunar New Year in China, and I guess I can understand why Apple wants to focus on the Chinese market, because they can sell a massive amount of iPhones there, but it also would be very random to launch an iPhone in Jan. In fact, the last time they announced a new iPhone in Jan was the OG model back in 2007, and so I don't see them going back to that schedule for the SE4. SE models have always launched in March, and so expect the SE4 to follow suit, and maybe the beginning production in October to stockpile them because they're gonna be flying off shelves. Pricing wise, a higher price also makes sense because did you really think Apple was gonna give us a new design for the same price? Timothy wants to make some big bucks, and so it's definitely going to be more expensive, and Apple can justify it. Now that could mean the SE3 stays around in the range for $399, which would still make a horrible value, but considering the iPad 9 stayed in the range originally when the iPad 10 released, I wouldn't be surprised if they do the same here. But hey, hopefully once the SE4's been around for a while, we can see some sort of price cuts, just like the iPad 10 recently dropped to $349. And I know some might say Apple's never gonna get away with this is too expensive, they're scamming us, but no, they are not scamming us, they're gonna sell a ton of these. I know the tech community hates the SE3, and I understand why, it's not great value, and there are much better Android phones for a similar price, but that doesn't stop it from consistently being a great seller, and that's the thing guys. Yes, we techies focus on the raw specs, but at the end of the day, only the iPhone offers iOS, and that sweet hardware and software integration. Even if Android phones offer the best displays and cameras on the planet for the same price, there will be those who buy an iPhone because they want iMessage, they want AirDrop, and they want the longer support. So basically what I'm trying to say is that Apple's going to sell a bucket load of these, but personally I like the SE3 right now. The SE4, based on the rumors, does seem to offer decent value since it's got the modern design, OLED, Apple Intelligence support, and also the 40 megapixel camera. And those are big reasons to get this over an older iPhone 13 or 14, because yes, whilst they won't be available to buy directly from Apple, they will still be available to buy refurbished and used from third parties, but I still think you should go for the SE over those phones because of the reasons I previously mentioned. Anyways, let me know your thoughts in the comments, make sure to like and subscribe for more content like this, and thank you for watching. So if you're in the market for a new mid-range iPad, both the Air and the Mini might come to mind, so let's compare these and see how they are in 2024. Beginning with the design, these are literally the same iPads in two different sizes, and so whilst these designs aren't anything special, they focus on practicality. The flat edges are easy to grip onto and of course helps accommodate the pencil, and it would be nice if the bezels were thinner because especially on the Mini, they are pretty chunk, but ultimately they serve a purpose. You can still place your finger somewhere when using the iPads. Now the Mini does have a few design differences, the first thing being the volume buttons. Because Apple could not fit both the pencil and the volume buttons on the landscape side, the volume buttons had to move. Now I've got used to this to be fair, but I still prefer having the volume buttons in the correct position instead. The other thing that's different is the flash, because yes, for some reason the Mini has a flash, but the iPad Air and 10 don't. But anyways, there's that I guess. Specifically coming to the sizes, this is obviously the biggest physical change between these two iPads, and for those wondering which one